For the enterprise track, today we're talking with Cynthia Mallor of Walmart. She is the head of 3D creative technology, and she'll be talking at AWE about EQ for XR, helping creative and merchandising teams adopt 3D. So let's get started. Hey, Cynthia, welcome, and thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's so great to be here. It's the highlight of my day. It's fun
Uh,
stuff.
Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do in the metaverse?
Yeah, so I actually come from traditional background and, veteran of probably 100 plus TV commercials. And what I find relevant about that, which is always nice if your past is relevant, is that coming up through Hollywood, anything was possible. There was nothing that you could imagine that you couldn't show on film. So this was just the mindset that I had. So coming to Silicon Valley, working in digital, and then ultimately now working in 3D, I kind of already have the mindset of like, yeah, like the answer is never no, right? The answer is how do we do it? So I found that that really helps me. And so now for Walmart, I work in the consumer facing piece. And I mentioned that because I have a lot of really talented colleagues using 3D for, like the employees. It's well known that associate training, we use VR, and those guys are amazing. So I do the consumer facing work, and we obviously start with models. That's a building block. And then we make beautiful scenes and beautiful videos for marketing and merch. And then those models get used for all the things that 3D models get used for.
I bet we could spend a whole episode just talking about 3D models and what you can do with all that content.
Yeah.
How often are you in the metaverse and what do you do there?
So I go fairly often. It's really funny. So I'm a figure skater, and I'd like to think that I have a high tolerance for dizziness. But I always warn people when you're first going in, you need to be aware that you might get really dizzy as you're moving around.
Mhm.
I like to go, and I'm sort of a one of those interloper tourists. I tend to attend things, but I don't do a lot of socializing, which mirrors my real life. So I would really like to do more. I've got my headset right next to me, and it's always saying, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while." So yeah, I remember me.
Cynthia.
So as often as I can. And I think also it is important to remain a ignorant customer. In other words, like, well, this is fun, and pretend like I don't know anything. And it helps me remember this is how people are experiencing it. It's all new. They don't really care. Like I turn on the light switch, I don't know how it works. It doesn't matter. So it's
It
like I just try to
doesn't
remember, like,
matter.
don't worry about how this is all happening. Just enjoy it. Take the magic part to your heart and just experience it, right?
You don't ask how a light switch works. You don't need to know in order to get that benefit. You don't
Nope.
necessarily need to know everything about X in order to have a good time or a meaningful experience. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you've got a couple talks at AWE this year. We don't want to spoil anything, of course, but what's one big idea that you're hoping, or two, that you're hoping to share with your audience this year at 22?
Well, I am a big proponent of opening with love. And in this technical space, I like to bring people through with education, but from a place of love and compassion. Like, you're valuable. You don't have to be an engineer, okay? Like, you're going to have your own voice. Let's talk about what it is generally and get their mind going. But I really want to have compassion for people that they hear all this going on and they don't know what's going on. They're worried about being left behind. And yet the truth is that they can understand it.
Hmm.
I actually, so the overall theme is just look, it's okay to be who you are. You do not have to start like at midnight going and trying to study code. I mean, this has been the truth all along. That's not who you are. Be who you are and bring your talent to the board. And there's a place for that. It just that we forget that when everyone's talking about something new and you're in a room going, I don't have anything to add, and it feels bad, like, okay, I'm part of the past and not the future. And that's painful emotionally. And I don't want people to go through that. I want to help them understand
If the
they're
metaverse
really important. Yeah, go ahead.
if the metaverse is for all of us and has the opportunity to impact everyday life, we need everyday players just as much as we need builders and producers.
Yeah, every
Thank you for making a space for people in the metaverse. That's such a fantastic position. Is there anything that you're excited to learn about or experience firsthand at the expo?
I'm really interested in learning about there's a question out there which is what is the general expectation about level of reality? Because in my travels we
Hmm.
focus a lot on that and I'm actually not sure that it's necessary. I don't know. I So operationally I think about this from a practical standpoint, okay? Like if it takes 12 hours to make a really beautiful 3D model, however, the 8-hour version is going to be just as compelling. I'd like to know that. So I want to kind of see where people's heads are at with what they're developing, because as you develop it, you have a requirement like level of fidelity, reality. And of course, gamers are at the leading edge of this. And you could talk to different gamers and what they expect to enhance the game is going to be different. But I'm really interested to know what do we all think is what are we aiming for here? Are we overshooting?
I've heard a lot of topics, a lot of conversations around standards as it relates to interoperability, right? That we need standards because we want interoperable avatars. We want to be able to take these experiences with us. We want to control our own data. But what I'm hearing from you is a whole sort of another layer over and a different reason for that same kind of
Yeah.
structure and standards. So,
Yeah, we're going to get into trouble. Let's say, so individual companies, one company may have a huge team and a large budget, and the next one doesn't have that, but we're expecting a standard. So, what that
mhm.
does is put a lot of pressure on smaller teams. You know, if I were a really small team right now, I'd be like, okay, wait, can the standard be more like 5 rather than 10? Because I don't have the people and I don't have the release time. And
Well, and
what do you expect? So the original Star Wars is still beautiful. It's funny in its lowbrow. It's about stories. I want to know from people in order to feel like you want to engage more and wear your headset more and do more things. What is it that makes you feel comfortable there? It actually has implications for ecom too in the normal web world too.
it seems like we could go deep on standards.
Yeah.
Into the speed round, do you have a metaverse avatar? And if so, what does it look like?
I do. That's my Oculus one, which is the closest that I've come to it representing me. So yeah, my Roblox one is tragically far from me. But to my earlier point, I am comfortable representing me as me. So far, I don't really want to, be a furry and I don't want to look like a fox. Right now, what I'm
Hmm.
striving for, I notice my behavior. Oh, I, I want it to look like me. Okay, that's cool. That's my starting point. Some people are not there at all. Like they'd rather be an elephant. I'd be like, cool. I don't want to do that yet.
I wonder, does what you use the metaverse for contribute to how you like to represent yourself in the metaverse?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure that it does. I always want to pay attention to I'm only a focus group of one, but I was giving a presentation internally. I give a lot of like, okay, let's just talk about like let's just calm down and talk about what it is, but calm down. And I talk a lot about I show them, oh, here's my avatar for this thing and this thing, because it's about interoperability, right? Like traversing.
Hmm.
But I talk like we look different. And I realize as I'm saying it, well, why does that upset me? Like, so I look different wherever I go. Okay, but for me, I'm like, I think as I traverse, I want to still be me for now. Uh, but I recognize I'm going to encounter all kinds of other people that that's not the case, and you can't make assumptions. It's
Yeah.
mind blowing, you know.
I love it. You're potentially, Cynthia, and this is with all with love. I think you're one of the first people I've met that prefers a realistic avatar over a more abstract one. I myself, I love trying on different looks and filters and screen. That's a lot of why I got into the metaverse, was just like, ooh, let's try everything on. So it's super cool to meet this first perspective for me. Our last little segment is an opportunity to give a shout out or maybe introduce us to somebody who's impacted your learning and journey and understanding what the metaverse is. Is there anybody that contributed to your journey and growth?
I think there's two people. Tony Parisi is, I just admire him so much. And he's a great example of what I've been talking about. You know, he knows all of this in its complexity, but when he presents it, he does it simply. And that is so hard to do, because I know as he's talking, this guy, like inside his head is like so complicated, but he really is able to distill it down in a way where every time I talk to him, I feel like maybe I am smart. I don't know. I'm feeling smarter now. And then an hour later, I'm like, no, I'm just me. And then Amy Peck has also, what an amazing woman who advocates for actually all human beings, but really helps build a sisterhood. And there's a whole nother layer to why that's valuable. But those two people, for me, I don't think I would be here without them, because they really pulled me along, and they helped me feel like I'm doing something valuable as well in that daily grind. So I love them both and don't see enough of either one of them. So
Oh my goodness, that is so sweet. This is fast becoming my favorite question to ask.
uh-oh.
Uh, so it's just, it's full of great insights and stories. Cynthia, is there anything else that we should make sure that we don't forget, or anything that you'd like to share with our audience ahead of Augmented World Expo 22?
One of my favorite books is called The Case Against Reality by Donald Hoffman. And he reminds us that we have for thousands of years already been living with representations of things that are not complete. They really are icons. He talks about this, right? Like when you walk outside, what you see is they're all icons of the thing. Like back in the day, you didn't need to see the entire lion. You just saw the face, but you're pretty sure there's a tail and claws and guts. So we have been trained from an evolutionary standpoint to just need a little bit of reality to go forward with the rest of our day. So I always remind myself of that. And we were talking about how real should things be. Well, already our brains are okay with a very little bit of information. Every day we make these decisions. Like I'm driving in traffic and I only see the grill of the Bentley coming at me. You know, but I know there's probably a Kardashian in there, but I only need to see the front of the Bentley. I know there's a back. So if it's
Hmm.
coming at me, I understand that this huge thing's coming at me. So the icons on our desktop, you know, the things that we see online that we create, that when the power goes out, they might not last long. So we
Hmm.
are already there mentally. We don't need to learn any new mental skills. We're prepared for it already. So I just love that, because it helps with, so I guess we already have the tools to ideate, to tell stories in the metaverse, because we have been living with just a little bit of real information forever.
Oh my gosh, what a fantastic place to leave it. Cynthia Mallor, head of 3D creative technology at Walmart. So looking forward to seeing your programming at A22. And thank you so much for joining us for preview.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you as well.